And now, do you guys want to know how that plays into our strategy? Is that within the 15-minute to 2 hour mark, you're going to get TP1 and TP2 just like we have right here. This was a 30-minute candle that entered the 88.6, kind of went under, and then another 30-minute candle that just hit that TP1. So in 1 hour, I mean, depending on where you caught this, but in a little bit less than an hour, probably 45 minutes, you already have about 80 points with a very predictable model and a strategy that's repeatable. Make sense? And so that's why my 15-minute to 2 hour duration trades were the most profitable, because it played into our strategy. Anything above 2 hours, I was waiting for TP3. And what would happen is the market would go up and then it would come all the way back down. And I would end up closing about halfway back because I just didn't want to lose the trade. And so then my wins on all those trades with a duration of more than 2 hours were usually not as profitable. So look at your duration, people. Big, big deal. Put something in the chat so we're clear. We good to go? Are we live on YouTube? I think so. Hey guys, everybody wants to learn the next trick with technicals because they just don't want to look in the mirror. So it's like, it's the equivalent of the people that try to get in shape, but instead of like eating right and moving more, they'll just keep learning the next thing and reading the next book about sugar and reading the next book. And then, "Oh, would you believe what the FDA did? And would you believe?" But I can't hear you over the huffing and puffing. You understand? The videos ain't helping. So most people, they want a simple, they want a simple solution, but they want to find the answers externally because it's a lot easier than looking in the mirror and admitting, oh shit, I've been giving half my money back. Not a very comfortable feeling. So some housekeeping stuff. Everybody put a W Josh in the chats. Josh is going to be doing his first back testing session tonight. We're going to put up a poll in the Discord right after this to see what time is best for everybody, whether it's today or tomorrow. But you guys know Josh has been crushing it with the back testing, really been putting his focus on details. So Model 1 versus Model 2, how often does each happen? What are some of the more fine-tuned details and some of the things that he is seeing from a student's perspective? Kind of, but a student that's really, I don't want to say obsessed over this, but he really did take this on as a personal project. So put W Josh in the chats. We're going to put up a poll after this to see what time is best for everybody. And we'll be doing drinks and back testing. Drinks and back testing. And I've told you guys on this, I've told you guys many times that we have a spot here for anyone who is serious. And obviously we can't bring on everybody at the same time. That's not sustainable. But once, as we grow as a group and as we have more folks coming in, we need your help. And so we don't need the help, but let's just say we want to build the dream team, and we could literally have it right here. I'm looking at the names in the chat right here. We got Big James in here. We got Two Step. We got Christine. We got Bobby. Come on. We got Roman. We got Roy the second. Right? We got JLP in here. Hasna's in here. Christine's in here. Chris. Allen's in here. Bro, talking about a dream team. Jensen's going to be having his own call starting next week as well. Probably pre-market outlook or post-market outlook. We'll have to see. Everyone's got to earn their stripes, people. And then eventually, everyone gets their own live streams, different days of the week. It'll be incredible. Other housekeeping things. What do we have? Oh, people, we're about 150 subs away from 70,000 subscribers. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're thinking about doing some kind of giveaway. All right, I don't know what kind of giveaway we're going to do. 70,000. Maybe we'll do something. Okay, maybe we'll do 70% off for a day. Oh my God. We'll do something for sure. Where's Mike? That is a good question. All right. All right, Jerome. Good trade. So today it's Friday. Not going to have a lot of, for me, I'm not eager to trade on Fridays. I was just explaining to the team. That's one of my big sort of observations is that I usually give back a lot of money on Fridays. And so as a function of that, I'm not really eager to trade, but we're going to keep our eye on the charts here. I still have this 19,000 level marked off, and I really I really want to avoid trading unless we see something as clear as a full correction and then just a scalp to the upside. Now, the other option is that we're going to break into this range here and then recover. So about halfway of this previous impulse, think about like 50% mark right there. So if we hold this support, then we have another entry at 19,400. So double bottom, and then we can scalp it up to 19,500. Quick 100 points. Risk would be about 50. So you can get about a 2-to-1, maybe about a 1.5-to-1. Option 2 is this sort of like halfway deal. And then the highest probability trade for me is this 19,000 full retracement, which I will personally be looking for. But as of right now, we're still respecting that support. So I'll go ahead and mark this off. And we'll just see how price reacts. Put an alert right below the zone in case we come back to retest. And then put another alert at the top in case price breaks out. Get a good enough a head start if the market wants to break out. Okay. So we're going to do something fun today instead of kind of going through too much of news. Yesterday's live stream, we went very news heavy, broke down a lot of stuff when it comes to macroeconomics, and we can do that as well. But I want to play some of that Elon and Trump interview and see if we can find anything that's related to markets and related to deregulation, how that's going to affect NASDAQ in the future in the next 6 months, or potentially if Trump gets elected the next 4 years. Elon, Trump, YouTube. This is a scam, by the way. If you guys come across this, they had like 180,000 live viewers or something. And it was just like a giant crypto, one of those crypto pump and dump scams.
My apologies for the late start.
Coming from countries that are been.
Okay. Now, of course, if you guys have any questions, just let me know in the comments. But I'm just going to basically react to this as if I'm reacting to this. And then, yeah.
God, I think we got to all start thinking about a check for $1 million.
How are we on volume? You guys can hear the audio?
Gave it to the wife, and he was just a fantastic family and a fantastic man. And a friend of mine came up, Elon, and said, I'd like to give the family some kind of help. And I said, all right, that's great. He said, do you mind? I said, I don't mind at all. And he wrote out a check for $1 million, gave it to the wife. And, she said, this is really nice, but I'd rather have my husband back, which is a nice thing for somebody to say, to be honest.
So he's talking about he donated $100,000 to that individual who had basically jumped in front of the bullets to protect his family, and he died at the Trump rally when during the Trump assassination. So Trump had donated $100K to the fam, and I'm pretty sure Elon Musk had donated $1 million to the family out of nowhere. And he was just saying that, and it's heartbreaking, but this is also one of the most heartwarming things as a man, to know that this is what your family thinks of you. To say the money's great, but I'd rather have my husband back. That's oof. That's when you know you've done something right.
She's great. The family is great. And we raised a lot of money for them and for two other gentlemen are unbelievable people also. They were hit really badly. They thought they were not going to make it, and they did. The doctors in the Butler area, I tell you, they were incredible. They saved the two, and they were really hit tough, both of them, equally. And we thought, my first question was, because I heard bullets flying over me, I said, how many people were killed? Because we had a massive crowd there, a tremendous thousands and thousands of people, and there was no land. I mean, it was all people. So I said, how many people have been killed? Because I knew there were other shots being fired. And they said, we don't know yet, but some people have been badly hurt. And I have to give the Secret Service sniper, they call him, or sharpshooter, but sniper, because he didn't know there was a problem. He's an extraordinary shot, obviously, and he didn't know there was a problem. And he was able to pick it all out within 5 seconds. And he used one bullet from very far away, I guess probably about 400 yards. The shooter was 130, but he was on the opposite side of the field and the podium. And he saw the smoke and the flame from the gun. immediately recognized it and immediately took.
All right, I have to stop this broadcast to show you guys. And I appreciate the heads up. Gold has officially hit 2,500 and rejected. Look at this rejection right here. You can tell the sell limits got activated as soon as we touched that zone. How many institutions have been holding gold for 100 years and gold hasn't moved in price? And then all of a sudden, in the last 10 years, gold has gone from the thousands up to, or like sub 1,000 per ounce up to 2,500. You guys know what this means, right? This is what it means. What it means is that Peter Schiff is going to be on every freaking podcast for the next 2 weeks talking about I told you so, and we're not going to get to hear the end of it. Okay? This is what y'all wanted. You guys wanted a bullish gold. All right, now we get to hear Peter Schiff talking about I told you so. But the thing about gold is what goes up must come down. Where one institution is looking to buy up gold, and a lot of the price activity happens because of derivative contracts. So people putting on futures and options and leveraging up 10 to 1, 50, sometimes 50 to 1, but usually in case of large institutions and central banks, it's 12 to 15 to 1. That's what really drives these price movements. But then you also have sovereign wealth funds and central banks that actually hold gold itself. And so when price starts to pump, anyone who's in profit can look to, sell off and take some profits. And yeah, that's what's happening right here. So we are gonna see a little bit of pressure get released from gold here. Now let's take a look at the DXY real quick before I play the Elon and Trump video. So we have this beautiful double bottom. I'm still expecting a little bit deeper of a retracement before we continue to the upside. And so gold still has a little bit more room to the upside. Gold still has a little bit more room to the upside before we come crashing back down. And just looking at this on the daily, there's this massive wedge forming here. The pressure cooker. Roy, are wedges and all these things valid? If it's got more than 3 touches on it, yes, it's valid. Unless you don't trust your eyes. Unless you think that the markets run on coincidence. In which case, I don't know which one I'm more worried about. All right. If that's a coincidence to you, then get back to the books. All right. So wedge breakouts typically go in 2 fashions. It's either going to be fake up, break down, right? Or fake down, retest about 80% right here, and then continue. So either way, we're nearing the end of this gold kind of push. Because I just saw the DXY has more room to the downside, I could see this kind of false break to the upside first, and then fall all the way through being the most likely. All right, and I do believe that we break below these lows and come back to about the 2,200 area before continuing. Hope that makes sense. That might be too low, maybe down to 2,300, but I know my wedges. That thing could have a little bit more room once it breaks that structural support here on the daily. All right, let's get back to the interview.
The shot, and it was one perfect shot from very far away. And if he didn't do that, Elon, he would have. I mean, if he would have, a lot more people could have been badly hurt and killed. So I have to take my hat off to him, because that's also.
They're talking about the assassination, but most of this has already been public. He's giving credit to the Secret Service, but I want to get to some policy stuff.
Jumping on top of me, relieved and happy and thrilled, and the place went crazy. Kamala and Joe.
There we go. Let's get to the fun here, right? And if you guys have any comments, make sure to put them in the YouTube comments, or if you guys are members and have questions about markets, you want to send your markups or anything like that, send those in the Zoom call. All right, I'll be right here.
You see what happened? Remain in Mexico policies. I had all these different policies that was so good. Guys like Tom Holman and Brandon Judd from Border Patrol. These are all people that they've been on television. They said it's the best numbers we've ever had. We had so many different checks, catch and release in Mexico, not the United. We had catch and release in the United States. We had it in Mexico. We had so many things. We had things where if many people come in there, they have contagious diseases. We had everything passed. If you have a contagious disease, I'm sorry, but we cannot allow you into the country. So we were setting literally records, and all I was doing is showing that. And
if you have an infectious disease, we can't let you in the country. How is that debatable, bro?
I use it sometimes,
Sure.
and in this case, I'm glad I used it. I can tell you that. But they were fantastic numbers. But I'm going to sleep with that chart always. I'll be sleeping with that chart. That chart was.
They had this funny joke where he was like, "What was the chart that you were looking at when you turned your head?" And it was the chart of illegal migration into the country, and that's the number one biggest hot topic today because of how severely dangerous it's going to be for America over the next 4 or 5 years to have this many undocumented folks. Elon laughs. He's like, "Oh, I guess illegal immigration saved your life, Mr. Trump." These guys got a sense of humor, man. That's why I like them.
Was very important for a lot of reasons.
Well, I mean, would it be accurate to say that you're supportive of legal immigration? And illegal immigration, because and that's not the same as saying that everyone who's an illegal immigrant is bad. In fact, I think most people who are illegal immigrants are actually good, but you can't tell a difference unless there's a solid vetting of who comes across the border. Does that actually
100%.
accurately represent your position?
I say it very simply. They have to come in legally. They have to be checked.
Yeah.
Because look, Kamala was the border czar. Now she's denying it. Everything that I do, she's saying she was strong on the border. We're going to be strong. Well, she doesn't have to say it. She could close it up right now. They could do things right now. It's horrible. No tax on tips, and all of a sudden she's making a speech and there will be no tax on tips. I said that months ago. And by the way, they had just the opposite. They had not only tax on tips, but they hired 88,000 IRS agents, and many of them were assigned to go get waitresses and caddies and all of this.
Now, slight fact check here. They did hire all those agents, but there was a directive that was signed by Janet Yellen, because the Treasury Department is in charge of the IRS. That said that those agents should be targeting folks who are making over 400K or above a year. And I'm like, y'all wanted to wait until I got in the club to start pulling this bullshit. I'm working my ass off this whole time, and now that we're finally in the door, now they want to bring on 88,000 IRS agents for people over. Give me a break. Now, I don't know if that directive is actually being taken serious, and I do know that for a while there was a lot of folks that were dealing with serious tax issues because of that. But hey,
on tips, they have a policy. They had a policy that they were really going to go after you, and were really harassing people horribly. And then all of a sudden, for politics, she says, she comes out with what I said, which I think is terrible, and I think it's also hitting them very hard. These people are fake. Now they're also saying they did a good job in the border. We had the worst numbers in the history of the world, not of our country. There's never been a country in history that has had a catastrophe like this. We've had, I believe, and I think you believe this too, you hear 12 million, 13. I believe it's over 20 million people came into our country, many coming from jails, from prisons, from mental institutions, or a bigger version of that is insane asylums. And many are terrorists. And I'll tell you what, they're coming not just from South America, they're coming from Africa, they're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Asia, they're coming from the Middle East, they're coming from countries that are.
Christine, same thing I'm seeing on Naz. Just waiting on that push off.
Stupidly and horribly bombing Israel October 7th. They're coming from all over the world. And you look at, it's so sad, October 7th, because it should have never happened.
Yeah.
It's so sad when you look at Ukraine. It should have never happened. We have a defective government. These are defective people, and they're not people that should be running it. But where you see it the best is the border, because you have millions of people coming in a month and then she gets up and she tries.
Oh yeah, everyone who's registered for the masterclass, I'm very excited too. We're coming up on about 10 days away. A lot of people have been sending us emails about the pre-work or the pre-course work that everyone's required to complete. You're going to get that within the week leading up to the class. So everybody, hold your horses. It's coming, and I promise you, the class is going to be worth the wait, as we've shown time and time again on these streams. So if you're excited for the masterclass, drop something in the chats. If you're not excited for the masterclass, what are you doing? What are you excited about? Because if making money and getting your life right don't excite you, then what does? All right. We're going to be going through this Donald Trump and Elon Musk interview, kind of going through commentary while very slow market movement today. It's been a very active week, specifically yesterday between CPI, PPI, and retail sales. And obviously this banger of an inflation report that we saw this week. I think that the markets are, I don't want to say tapped out, but you can only pump so much money at one time into the markets without some kind of correction. Now, if all the institutions are in this consensus where they anticipate the Fed to cut rates, and American innovation and all these earnings reports are just going to smash in Q4, then they're going to keep buying it up at these high prices. But if there's anything that we know about markets, is that they don't move in a straight line, and what goes up has to correct. And so today, it's a Friday. I am expecting some kind of correction, but of course, we'll let the market decide. If we see this correction back down to 19,000, I'll be taking some buys. I'll put a couple contracts in. Might throw a contract or two. But if we are just going to stick around this region, I don't think I'm going to take a trade. Now, if we get this double bottom, or even better, like a quick liquidity grab through the zone and then close back above where the bodies close above, I'm taking that trade too, with my stops right below wherever that wick just formed. So if we get a double bottom with a wick right here, I can put stops below that wick somewhere predictable. I'll take that little scalp. I'll take that scalp. But besides that, no real trades. If you guys want to take the shorts up here, have at it, but that's just not for me. I don't trade against the trend.
Tries to pretend like she's going to do something. She had 3.5 years. And by the way, they have another 5 months that they can do something, but they won't do anything. It's all talk. She's incompetent and he's incompetent. And frankly, I think that she's more incompetent than he is. And that's saying something, because he's not too good.
Oh, shit. You say Kamala Harris is less competent than Joe Biden is honestly hilarious. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, I think it is essential to have a secure border. I mean, you're really not a country unless you have a secure border. And
secure elections.
Yeah, absolutely, secure elections.
Now, I know I keep interrupting, but this is important context. Keep in mind that Elon Musk does hold about 35 government contracts with Starlink, SpaceX, even with Tesla, and I believe a few other contracts that he has specifically with the government. So you'll see in this entire interview, he doesn't attack anybody by name. He doesn't criticize them directly. He just criticizes policies and he criticizes reality. Now, Trump is going over here to burn everything down. So he's calling everybody out by name, saying Kamala is less qualified than Biden is. She's less competent, whatever. But just notice the difference between their tones. Even though Elon Musk is known to be this troll or whatever, he knows how to play his cards. He's not losing these government contracts, and he's definitely not creating an enemy out of the government or the intelligence state apparatus.
And so it's just essential to have a real border, or we can't function as a country, and our our essential services are being overwhelmed in a lot of cities. But as we were talking about earlier, I think having a legal immigration process that is smooth and efficient and done well, and speaking as someone who is a legal immigrant, I think that. I mean, like one way to think of it is, who do you want on your team? Who do you want on Team America? And I think we want to just say, okay, we want to let in people who are gonna, be great contributors to our society and to our economy, and and who do you want on the team? And it's not to say that, like in my opinion, actually, I'd say like probably most of the illegal immigrants actually are actually good, hardworking people. That's my opinion. But some are not. And you just have this sort of adverse selection process where, you know, if somebody's, you know, if somebody's like you know, has a career in theft or robbery, I don't understand what's taken them so long to get here. Because we're in such a target-rich environment. I mean, you know, why aren't more people who have a career in, you know, bad things coming here sooner?
I think it was a cutoff from the stream, but Elon makes a point. It's like, look, we're kind of sitting ducks right now. Like we are literally, as a country, absolutely stupid. And then everyone's like, wait, Elon, don't invite people who have history and crime and all this stuff to come here. It's like, bro, he's not inviting them. The door is wide open. Him mentioning that the door is open is not going to get them here faster. But the reality is, like, we are literally sitting ducks, and anybody in the world that has bad intentions, this is probably a field day. Just throwing that out there. And if you guys are like, why is any of this funny? Because I've been talking about this for a while, and I'm ready to defend myself no matter what happens. But most people don't take this border issue seriously at all. They think it's like a political talking point. People are willing to vote for a president over abortion rights versus the border crisis. And so if this is what you want is unsafe communities, then this is what you are going to get. And if those of you guys are listening at home saying that is an absolute hellscape, I don't want to live in the purge, right? I don't want to live in an environment like San Francisco. I don't want the whole country to become San Francisco. Then get out and vote for your local representatives. The presidency is important, but your local reps are the ones that really are fucking up your city. And those are the folks that you guys should be holding accountable because they're usually incompetent. I've worked with a few of them, and they're typically, how do I say this? I'm not say they're not just incompetent. A lot of them really are just greedy, siphoning money, power hungry, etc. Just look it up on the news. Say local district, whatever, fraud case, and just look at how many of your mayors and things like that have been in these issues. So vote correctly, people, for the policies that you want to see happen in this country. Now, if I see any, I'm looking through a bunch of data right now. I'm seeing that there's a 75% or 76% chance of no rate cuts in September. So the market is betting on no rate cuts in September. I don't believe that at all. I believe we see a rate cut in September, but obviously we'll see what Jackson Hole leads to. Now, here's the interesting piece: is there's about 100% chance that by March. Wait, hold on. Let me do my math. March. By March of next year, there's 100% chance that we'll be at the 4% range for the Fed funds rate. So right now we're about 5.5%. The market is voting that we stay at 5 to 5.25 or 5 and 5.5. But they're saying that by March of next year, there's 100% chance that we'll have had enough rate cuts to bring us down to the 4%. That's 10 basis points. Yeah, that's a whole percentage point that we're going to be cutting. Very interesting. If I find anything in this data, I'll let you guys know for sure. I will let you guys know for sure. 900, 556. What the hell just happened? 21, 21. The money supply is still increasing. This is not even, oh, well, this isn't in real time. This is only going to give us until July, but the M2 money supply, which is all the money in the economy, has been steadily increasing this entire year. So in a year where they're supposed to be doing quantitative tightening and pulling money out of the economy, the M2 money supply is still going up. This is $20 trillion, 20.5 trillion. It went up to 21.1. That's an extra $500 billion that got printed, $600 billion. What are we doing? And then they have this fake CPI print that says 2.9% this week. Something about this is not adding up. I'm going to keep taking a look around and see what I find.
Much smaller scale, but this is a massive scale because this is being done worldwide. But here's what's happening. Crime all over the world is down. And wait till you see the numbers that we have. You know, this is migrant crime. This is crime that's going to be.
Yeah.
And I saw it today in New York where somebody was knifed with raped the girlfriend of a man that stood there watching in New York in one of the shelters and started
Sure.
pulling out the knives, and bad things happened today. But this is happening every day. These are rough people. These are people that are in jail for murder and all sorts of things. And they're releasing them into our country. And they're telling them, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to give you the death penalty or kill you. So they don't want to come back. But these are rough people.
Yeah.
These are criminals that make our criminals look like nice people. And it's horrible what they're doing. And she's in charge of it because, you know, now she's trying to say she had nothing to do with it. And she's such a liar because she was called the border czar, the first.
$6 trillion since COVID. Okay, I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. 33% of all the dollars in circulation today were printed in the last 4 years, mostly in the last between 2020 and 2022. In 2 years, we printed more money than the 30% of the entire money supply. That's a 100-year-old history of America. And this money has not found its way out of the economy. And in fact, if we are looking at the 5-year chart or the 1-year chart, look at the global M2 money supply. Look at what just happened. Why is the money supply going so big right now? I made this prediction last week where I said that global, central banks around the world are starting to prepare for the risk of a serious downturn, and they're printing this money in advance. It's going to find its way into the economy in September and October. You see? But this is egregious. Just since November of last year, we went from 20.7 up to 21. That's $380 billion. When we're supposed to be reducing the amount of tension on the economy. This is not good at all.
Day, and it was on the headlines of every newspaper. She's the border czar, and she never even went there. She went to one location, which had nothing to do with where the problem is. You know, she went in and out, I guess, because she was getting a lot of pressure, but had nothing to do with the problem is. But she was the border czar, and the people can't allow them to get away with their disinformation campaign. Now she's trying to say that she wasn't really involved, and the whole thing is horrible. She was totally in charge. She could have shut the border down without him. He didn't know what he was doing anyway, so he wouldn't have even known what happened. You could shut the border down, he wouldn't even know the difference. But the fact is that she was border czar. But if you don't have to call her that, the fact is you could just call her, she was in charge of the border, and the border was the worst ever.
It's simply not working.
No, it's horrible.
Whether it's a question of intention or competence, either way, we don't have a secure border, and we have.
If anyone's on the team, if we have a code to sign up for the masterclass, drop it in the. You can use code Chart Addicts, just one word.
People streaming over like it looks like a World War Z zombie apocalypse at times, and sometimes you got to sort of wonder, like, is it real or not? So because you see things, you're like, is it real? So I went to the border at Eagle Pass, and I saw for myself in Texas, and I was like, okay, it's real. I'm like seeing this in real time. I actually posted the video like just live. I just flew there one day and just to see, hey, is this made up or real? And I'm just seeing people stream across the border. And I have to say, at least the people that I saw did not look friendly.
These are
people can look at my video and say, hey, these people look friendly. I don't look super friendly. So
these are people that Elon would not be the same man if he had to walk across the street and look these people in the eye. These are rough people. These are really rough people coming across. And I know rough people. And these are people that we don't want in our country. And, the caravans are coming in, and they're putting, and who's doing this are the heads of the countries. And you would be doing it, and so would I. And everyone would say, oh, what a terrible thing to say. The fact is, it's brilliant for them because they're taking all of their bad people, really bad people. And I hate to say this, the reason the numbers are much bigger than you would think is they're also taking their non-productive people. Now, these aren't people that will kill you.
So the thing is, when Trump says all these things, it kind of seems like he's talking out of his ass. But then when you realize that these policies that some of the countries in South America are implementing, which is it costs a lot of money to house one criminal. Now in America, we have this entire prison complex system that basically we just seem to like love this shit for some reason. But in most countries, they cannot take care of a criminal who is destructive for their society. And so now they have an option to basically kick them out the country. And then folks can come to the United States. And that's what's happening, is basically a get the hell out of our country, or you're going to be in jail for the rest of your life, or you're going to be in the death penalty. And then they just come to the border because we have a wide open policy. And so when they're saying when he says that they are sending their worst, et cetera, he's not talking about your friend who came here and their family is from another country, bro. That's not who the fuck they're talking about. They're deliberately talking about folks that are being released from prison and being told that they have two options: go back to prison or get out. And everybody knows what get out means, and they have a pretty clear playbook of how to come up to this country and how to seek asylum. So that's what he's talking about, and it's a real deal. And if you guys don't believe me, in the next 4 years, when we have tons of crime increases and these countries have crime decreases, and some of those countries become safer than America, some parts of America, I think that everyone's going to start to wake up. But until then, people are going to be asleep at the wheel.
We have enough of them, but these are people that are non-productive. They are just not productive. I mean, for whatever reason, they're not workers, or they don't want to work, or whatever. And these countries are getting rid of non-productive people in the caravans in many cases. And they're also getting rid of their murderers and their drug dealers and the people that are really brutal people. And they're coming into our country at levels that have never been seen before. And I saw an ad just before I got on the air. I'm walking over here, and I saw an ad by Kamala saying how she is going to provide border security. Where has she been for 3.5 years? For 3.5 years.
Yeah, no,
We have 20 million people for it. It's a terrible.
Yeah, I think this, frankly, I think this is a fundamental existential issue for the United States. And if we have another 4 more years of open borders, and it's going to be even worse with another 4 more years, it's going to be even worse than it's been for the past, 3.5 years. I'm not sure we've got a country.
You don't have a country left. Elon, if they get in, you will have 50 to 60 million people from all over the world, not South America only. You know, we think of South America, we think of Honduras and El Salvador, Guatemala, and Mexico, the 4. But it's not that. It's everywhere. They're coming in from everywhere. And I had to stay in.
Yeah.
And that is that's actually probably the most concerning thing, is like, look, when you come to seek asylum at the border, it's because you are being persecuted in your own country and you have to seek political refuge somewhere else. Now, the problem with the asylum process is that anyone coming from South America has hit like 10 countries before they even hit Mexico. So if you really were here for asylum, you would have sought asylum in any of those other countries, but they're not. But now you got Arabs, you got Chinese, you got people. How did you end up in Mexico? It's because the playbook is known by the whole world. This is like, there are people that you'll hear about that are good meaning, probably great family friends of yours, that you'll hear that somebody that they know has come through Mexico recently. And they might be like Algerian or something. And you'll be like, how do you get from Algeria to Mexico? How does that even happen? That can't be the best way to get here. But they did. And so when he's talking about, it's not just from, it seems like the news always wants to single out certain keywords that he says and be like, oh, well, he's talking about Venezuelans. He's talking about, people from Honduras. He's not talking about the Honduras. He's talking about, how do we have Chinese nationals, 300,000 of them caught at the southern border with military age haircuts and no families? What the fuck is happening?
I think this is a super important point. Like, people, it's like, basically, when I went down there, I was like, well, where are people from? It's like almost no one was from Mexico.
No, Mexico left.
It's just the border. It's just the border with Mexico. But the people coming in, it's Earth, the rest of Earth, and America.
I'm an immigrant too, but guess what? The difference is, you want to use your brain for 30 seconds? You want me to say it? I'll let you figure it out. You want to know what the difference is between that kind of immigration?
America is only, about 4 or 5% of the population of Earth. It would only take a few percent of the rest of Earth to overwhelm everything.
We're already overwhelmed, Elon. We're overwhelmed. You had to see the news tonight about New York, and I love that place, and what they're doing to it is horrible, what they're doing to it. And all the courts do is they try and focus on Trump. Okay, then let's focus on Trump. who did nothing wrong. I complain about a rigged election. Elon, what's happened is unbelievable. You have from Africa, from the Congo, they're coming, from the Congo, and 20.
This is something I've always wondered. Put a 1 in the chat if you think that there was some funny business in the last election. Put a 2 in the chat if you think that it was 100% above board.
22 people came in from the
Again, put a 1 if you think that there was some funny business. Put a 2 if you think it was all above board.
Congo recently, and they're murderers, and they're dropped. They drop them. They take them out of jails, which is very expensive, to maintain the jails. Although they don't do too much maintaining, I can tell you. But they take them out of jails, prisons. They take them out and they bring them to the United States. They deposit them in the United States and say, "Don't ever come back, or you're going to be executed." And they don't want to come back, but they won't come back.
Sure.
But they're coming from Africa. They're coming from Asia. They're coming from the Middle East. They're coming from South America.
Well, just
They're
Earth.
coming from
Rest of Earth,
everywhere.
basically.
And there are a lot of
Yeah,
really
everywhere on
bad
Earth.
ones.
It's just an everywhere on Earth thing, and it's just not possible for the United States to absorb, everyone from Earth, or even a few percent of the rest of Earth. It's just not possible. So
Well, Elon, we're going to have,
that's
just
yeah.
to finish this up, we're going to have the largest deportation in history of this country, and we have no choice. Otherwise, we're going to have a country, what they've done to our country.
And this is what's messed up, is if you had secured the border in the first place, you don't have to do the uncomfortable thing of deporting families, which is about the worst thing that you can do, right? Now you're uprooting people again, and it's this traumatic experience, etc. No one wants to do that. And you could have avoided it by securing the border in the first place and having a clear path to entry instead of spending all this money on 88,000 IRS agents. Maybe we could have got some border agents and actually had a decent process so that people can apply for citizenship and we can actually have a vetting process that's necessary, etc. But no, it's all politics.
Think of it with in Venezuela and in some of these other countries, crime is down 50, 60, 70, 80%. And you would be the same. You would have.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Venezuela has not gotten rid of all of them. They've gotten rid of about 70% of their really bad people. Their jails are about 50% put into the United States. The same with other countries.
Sure.
Some are at 30%, some are at 50%. They're all different. But the bottom line is they're all going to be at 100%. Why wouldn't you put 100% of?
Yeah.
And they're doing it right now while this third-rate phony candidate. Don't forget, I beat Biden. He failed in the debate miserably. And, some people said, "Oh, gee, it's too bad. It's too bad he did so badly," or "I did well in the debate." The first night they said, "Wow." One of the people at CNN said that was the greatest debate performance I've ever witnessed. And then 2 days later, they didn't talk about that. They just said he was bad. But that's okay. That's the way I get treated. And I don't mind that at all. What I can tell you is this. We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden in a different.
Yeah.
Look, she hasn't done an interview since this whole scam started. And say what you want. This was a coup. This was a coup of a president of the United States. He didn't want to leave, and they said we can do it the nice way, or we can do it the hard way.
Yeah. I'm just talking about.
He's referring to a leak from the White House that came out that said that Nancy Pelosi and had basically gone into the Oval Office and talked to Joe Biden and said we can do this the easy way or the hard way. The hard way being Article 25, meaning impeachment, or you can keep your legacy intact. We'll call you the greatest president of our lifetime as part of the deal, and you get to step aside so we can beat Trump. That's the gamble they made. They are so, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're power hungry and power." It's not just power. You guys got to think you've been living a life that's just great, and you get to travel, and everybody reveres you, and you're when your side is in the White House, you get to walk around different. And then if Trump gets in, you have to answer for all the stuff that you've been doing wrong, and you're going to have to actually, basically, the whole house of cards comes down. And so they're doing everything they can to avoid the Trump presidency, just to keep that grip on the lifestyle they have, on the flying on Air Force One, on the having the influence in the House, and all these different things. So, yeah.
Back behind the shed and basically shot him.
What they did with this guy, and I'm no
yeah.
fan of his, and he was a horrible president, the worst president in history. And one of the reasons he was so bad, first of all, the Israeli attack would have never happened. Russia would never have attacked Ukraine, and we'd have no inflation. And we wouldn't have had the Afghanistan mess, if you think of it.
Well,
And we wouldn't have had Afghanistan. But we think of it, you take a few of those events away and we have a different world. We would also have inflation was caused by oil.
I think you're making an excellent point.
Well, here's the real difference is that there was, so you can see like this is really why I asked if you believe there was some funny business or not. If you don't believe there was any funny business at all, then yeah, I speak Spanglish. What you said makes sense. Now, if you believe that there was a little bit of funny business, that Joe Biden, who didn't campaign at all, who didn't have crowds of 100,000 people showing up, had absolutely blasted Trump in the votes, and there was, the House Oversight Committee had done an entire investigation on this, and even though media talking points said they found nothing conclusive, guys, go watch some of those clips. We might even have to pull some of them up on here about the ballot stuffing and some of the things caught on camera. Can't imagine the stuff that wasn't caught on camera. So if you believed that there was some funny business and that they had tried to rig the election against you, and you asked your vice president not to certify the votes so you can do an investigation on the election, to recount the votes, I don't think that's the same as walking in and threatening the president and telling him that they're going to basically tarnish his legacy if he doesn't step aside. Slightly different.
Point here, which is that when other countries can, that are thinking about invading or doing bad things, when they're thinking about that, they're thinking about, okay, what's the American president going to do? And do they fear the American president? Or is it someone they do not respect and do not fear? And I think they would rightfully be. I mean, but look at the footage of the assassination. They're like, okay, President Trump is like, don't mess with me. I mean, that's like, whereas I think people are not going to be, and they obviously have not been at all intimidated by Biden, and they certainly will not be intimidated by Kamala. And you have to really think of that in the context of global security. That if the American president is someone that, like, evil dictators are scared of, that makes a huge difference to the security of the world.
So I had a good relationship with Putin, despite.
Does anyone think that Kamala Harris is going to strike fear in the heart of our enemies in terms of respecting the United States? And specifically, I mean, Xi Jinping, dictator of China, 1.3 billion people over there. Modi from India, 1.4 billion people over there. Russia, one of the largest nuclear powers in the world. Netanyahu laughed at Kamala Harris's face when she tried to threaten him during the meeting. She's going to remember that. She's going to remember that big time. So does anyone think that she is equipped to be in those rooms? Let's just not talk about her as a person, because there's plenty of subject matter there. But let's just talk about her record, like being a prosecutor in California, and like not even a good prosecutor, being the district attorney at the time where California is literally going into the dumps, being hyper radicalized when the rest of the world, especially China and the BRICS nations, are telling the Western world, keep that shit over there, keep your social, whatever you guys are trying to do, over there. The DEI stuff, keep it over there. Do we really believe that Kamala Harris is going to have that influence? I don't know.
Like the Russia hoax that lasted for over 2 years, just a hoax created by Hillary Clinton and Adam Shifty Schiff, some just bad people, just sick people, frankly. I mean,
it's not about having a woman as president, bro. This is not a woman versus man thing. And I think that this is the divide. This is competent versus incompetent. So I'll give you an example. Tulsi Gabbard destroyed Kamala Harris at the last vice presidential or the last Democratic primaries when she was trying to run against Joe Biden. It was Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Buttigieg and all these people on stage. This is back when Tulsi was a Democrat. And that debate made Kamala drop out of the race because Tulsi Gabbard destroyed her so bad. And then the Democrat Party spited Tulsi so badly, she decided to go over and become a Republican. She went and spoke at the CPAC conference. So Tulsi Gabbard is somebody that I would want as president. Okay. Nikki Haley, no, because she's a warmonger. Again, I'm not into wars. So it's not a gender thing, bro. It's a policy thing. And everybody wants to focus on identity politics because it's a lot easier. because then they can pin men versus women, they can pin white versus black. It's a lot easier than saying that she's does not have the record. And then if you just look at the last 4 years of this country, like that's the same administrative policies that are going to be implemented. So at the end of the day, Nikki Haley, warmonger, would not want her. Hillary Clinton, warmonger, not her. Tulsi Gabbard, good pick. You see the difference?
And Schiff is a sick person. He's going to end up probably being a senator. It's hard to believe. The whole thing is hard to believe. But, they put our country in danger with that stuff, too. They actually, when they make up stories, and you have to fight your way out of it for a long time. But I know Putin very well. I got along with him very well. He respected me, and it's just one of those things. And we would talk a lot about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. But I said, don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. I shut down Nord Stream 2. That was the big oil pipeline, the biggest pipeline in the world going all over Europe. I shut it down. Biden came, and then they say,
Yeah.
I loved Russia. I was a friend of Putin, and I loved Russia. No, he actually said to me one time, he said, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as an enemy. I shut down his pipeline, the biggest pipeline. They were looking at that to fund, and this pathetic president gets in there. And the first thing he did, one of the early things he did, is he shut down Keystone XL pipeline, which is our pipeline that would have employed 48,000 people, pipeline workers, shuts it down. That was, a massive job that Obama refused to allow.
Yeah.
I allowed it in my first week because it was jobs and it moved oil. And by the way, in a much more environmentally friendly way. It's underground. It's not a truck that catches on fire or a train that catches on fire. But think of it. He shut down the XL pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline.
Yeah.
He shuts that down and he approves the Russian pipeline.
Yeah, it doesn't make any
Right?
sense. It's inconsistent. Certainly but I mean, I think it's just worth emphasizing, to listeners, the immense importance of whether the United States president is intimidating or not intimidating, and how much that matters to global security.
Before we get off that point of the oil thing, so in case you guys remember, or in case you guys don't remember, we had already been up at about 9% inflation post-COVID. And the policy was that Jerome Powell had announced they were going to end quantitative easing, which is a 14-year policy of money printing. And they were going to start quantitative tightening, which is the act of basically constricting the money supply, reducing the money supply in the economy. Now, when Biden took office, we had already normalized in employment and some of those key metrics for the economy. And so I'll even show you guys the charts just to kind of drive this point home. Printing trillions of dollars after we've already recovered is what caused the second wave of inflation that's taken us so long to get out of. Now, shutting down the Keystone pipeline made gas prices skyrocket as well, because we were basically relying on the rest of the world to supply us with oil. We didn't have the best relationship with Saudi Arabia at the time and with Russia. And so Biden did two very destructive things. Number one was deplete our SPR, which is the Strategic Petroleum Reserves. That's our war reserves in the country. If we can't get oil from anywhere else, we have enough to supply us. Now, the truth is America has more than enough oil to supply annual consumption. But the truth is we can make a lot of money by exporting it to other countries that are willing to pay full price, and then importing cheap oil from either Saudi, Russia, and then now Venezuela. Okay, so Biden depleted the SPR to try to bring inflation down, which he caused by putting trillions of dollars into the economy at a time where we had already recovered, and then went and begged Venezuela for oil because he had ruined the relationship with Saudi Arabia by siding, basically by trying to restrict Saudi Arabia's ability to pump oil. They went to Saudi Arabia and said, you're going to have to basically limit the amount of oil that you're putting out. And if you do that, we can keep the prices stable. Saudi Arabia was like, why would we do that? And Biden sort of tried to, act tough. And they did not like that at all. And they kept pumping more oil, even though in the OPEC Plus meetings, they had agreed to reduce production. It's a messed up game, people. Biden really, really messed up on the oil front, and that's a point that I think Elon should have stuck to. But they're talking about global security instead, which is, does the world respect the leader of America? Now I'm going to pull up the chart for unemployment. I'll drive this this point home real quick before I play the video. Let's look at the unemployment rate real quick. So this is COVID. Let's look at the COVID era here. So this is February 2020. And then as soon as COVID happened, unemployment had jumped to about 15%. When did Trump get out of office? Was it 2021? Is it January 2021? Yeah, 2021. Okay, so by 2021, the unemployment rate had already normalized. August, let's go to January. So we had already kind of gone off the peak, and we had already started to normalize, and we were headed back down to those normal levels of 3.5% when Trump left office. Pumping trillions of dollars in PPP, unemployment checks. What else did they do? There was so many bank transfers that they did. They had the bank term funding program, which was bailing out a ton of banks that were going under because of the high interest rates. So that's really the crux of this, is that they overcorrected after Biden took over in a situation where we were already normalizing. And then all they did was, between January and December, this was already going to happen by opening the economy back up.
Because there's some real tough characters out there, and if they don't think the American president is tough, they will do what they want to do.
I know every one of
and
them.
that puts it puts the
Yeah.
whole world in danger.
Elon, I know every one of them,
big
and I
deal.
know them well. I know Putin,
Yeah.
I know President Xi, I know Kim Jong-un of North Korea. I know every one of them. And let me tell you, people will say, oh, this is terrible. He said, I'm not saying anything good or bad. They're at the top of their game. They're tough, they're smart, they're vicious, and they're going to protect their country, whether they love their country. They probably do. It's just a different form of love, but they're going to protect their country. But these are tough people at the top of their game. And when they see a Kamala, or when they see Biden, Sleepy Joe, they can't even believe it. They can't believe this happened. All the stuff that you're seeing now, all the horror that you look at Israel, they're all waiting for an attack from Iran. Iran would not be attacking, believe me. You know, when I was there, and I say it with respect, because I think we would have been good with Iran. I don't want to do anything bad to Iran, but they knew not to mess around. Iran was broke. Because I told China, if you buy from Iran oil, it's all about the oil. That's where the money is. But if you buy oil from Iran, you're not going to do any business with the United States. And I meant it. And they said, we'll pass. They didn't buy oil. Other countries, likewise.
Sure.
You want to buy, you're not doing business with the United States.
And this is when I used to joke around about BRICS being a monopoly money and it's not going to be a legitimate currency. It's because at the time there was no, like, Trump did have all the pressure on these countries to not deal outside the dollar. And if you guys look at, like, I don't know, the history of regime changes, it's always gone back to oil. Why? Now, number one, oil is the biggest commodity in the world, and as much as people want to, you know, talk about the carbon revolution, the majority of the world still runs on coal and oil. All right, combustion is still the main driver of energy globally, especially for developing countries that can't afford advanced energy systems. So then you have this system called the petrodollar system. This is what protects the value of the dollar's reserve status around the world. The petrodollar system is that all oil in the world has to be transacted in US dollars as the kind of like the common currency that we can all use. Now, as a shared currency, it makes sense because you do need a standard pricing model, especially with so many countries outpricing each other and there's so much competition globally and so many different currencies and environments. So the petrodollar system is protected by the military. So if you look on the back of any cash in America, it says, this is legal tender. It's protected by the full faith and credit of the US government. Full faith and credit. So the faith part is, do you trust that the military is going to keep protecting the dollar's hegemony around the world? And the credit of the US dollar is that the global reserve currency gets to basically be the world's, how do I say this? Like you get to print as much as you want. And so the petrodollar system is protected by the military, which gives the dollar value. Now, why is this important? Now, imagine we didn't have something that's tied to the dollar, and we had a dollar today. How can we trust that we wake up tomorrow and the dollar is worth the same amount? Like, I'm Lebanese, and so in Lebanon we started having a hyperinflation crisis. 1,000 Lebanese lira or 1,500 Lebanese lira when I was a kid used to be equal to about $1. Right now, I believe on the black market exchange rate, it's about 25,000 Lebanese lira is now equal to $1. So overnight, your salary basically goes from 3,000 a month to 300 a month. Massive change. And so how does the US trust that when we wake up tomorrow, the whole world is still going to play this game? That's the petrodollar system. Everyone needs oil. It's the number one commodity in the world. We have tied that to the value of the global reserve currency. And that's something that's very unique because in the past, it's always been some kind of commodity that the global reserve currency held. But mostly it's been Navy. So we have a course on the website for fundamentals. And the first chapter, I kind of go through the history of currencies. This is like some nerd stuff. Nope, this is the Forex course. How to trade Forex. No, trading news. Okay, I just want to show you guys this real quick. Because before there was before the dollar, there was England had the global reserve status. Then it was Spain, Portugal, the Dutch. There's been a lot of folks that have held the torch. Hold on. Oh, here it is. That button was hidden for a second. History of currencies, global reserve
All right,
currencies.
welcome.
All right, so we had, starting in the 14th, we had Portugal, then the Dutch, then the French, then the British. I might have skipped the Spanish. Yep. So the Portuguese, then the Spanish, then the French, then the Dutch. Or sorry, the Dutch came first, and then the British, and then United States. United States has held the global reserve status basically since World War I. We came in, we saved the day, and then all of a sudden we got to hold the global reserve status. And so in the past, it's been Navy. Navy has been the way that every global currency has dominated. Let me just make sure I got my screens. And now it's a little bit different. Now we have the petrodollar system, which is this number one global commodity is now dependent on trade using US dollars. The history of regime change, if we look at Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, the Shah of Iran, Shah Pahlavi, and we can go down the list. In Egypt, everyone had tried to sell oil in their local currency. America don't like that. Okay, so it's a big deal to protect the US dollar's hegemony, to have this global dominance over the petrodollar system. That context is important for you guys going forward.
And they were at a point where they had no money for Hamas, they had no money for Hezbollah, they had no money for any of these instruments of terror. And it was amazing. In fact, there were articles when I was leaving, which is hard to believe, actually, especially when you look at what's happened to our country. Our country is so bad right now. It's such a different place. We were respected. Think of it. 4 years ago, we were so respected to a point where when I said don't buy oil, they didn't buy oil, but they had no money. And Israel would have never been attacked. It is zero chance. And again, I said to Vladimir Putin, I say, don't do it. You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day. You cannot do it. And I told him things that what I do. And he said, no way. And I said, way. And it's the last time we ever had the conversation. he would never have done. I got along well with him. I hope to get along well with him again. Getting along well with them is a good thing, not a bad thing. I got along well with
Yeah.
Kim Jong-un. When I met with President Obama just before entering, it's a sort of a ritual. And I sat down with him and we talked. It was supposed to be for a very short period of time. It turned out to be a long period of time. I said, "What's the biggest problem?" He said, "North Korea." I had that problem worked out very quickly. It was nasty at the beginning with Rocket Man and all the different things.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I got a call.
Those were some epic tweets, by the way.
Yeah, they were.
Those
They were epic. Everything. He said that he has a red button on his desk. I said, "I have a red button on my desk too, but my red button is much bigger, and my red button works." And then I called him Little Rocket Man, Little Rocket Man. Anyway, here's the bottom line. All of a sudden, I got a call from him. And they said they want to meet. They want to meet me. And we met, as you remember, we met in Singapore. We met also in Vietnam. And I got along with them great. We were in no danger. But President Obama thought we were going to end up in a war, a nuclear war with him. And let me tell you, he's got a lot of nuclear stuff too.
Exactly.
He's got plenty of nuclear. He can do plenty of damage. So
yes, it's because people like Kim Jong-un, they respond to strength, not weakness.
Well,
and
he and I had a good relationship. Remember I met him and we walked onto his land. Nobody ever walked onto his land before. I walked onto. I wouldn't say let's bring up Secret Service again. I wouldn't say they were thrilled when I did that. I walked onto his land, and it was an amazing period. But we were not in danger with him because of me. I always say that we have enemies on the outside and we have enemies on the inside. We have some really bad people in our government and people that are controlling of the people. I mean, I'd mention names, but I really don't want to give them the credit. But we have some really bad, and I say they're more dangerous than Russia and China. If you have a smart.
That's why in the military oath it says to swear to defend the country against all threats, both foreign and domestic. And so this whole thing of like, oh, he's comparing our government to Kim Jong-un, and like Trump sees our government the same as a foreign dictator. If you don't think that the framers of the Constitution realized that you could have bad people in your own country, and you don't think that the most destructive thing is somebody inside the group, that is the most dangerous thing. You can't beat America head on. Are you dumb? But from the inside, a little bit easier. And so special interests paying off politicians from foreign countries and getting foreign interests prioritized above American interests, that happens all the time. And Trump, boss move, by the way. So I'm not even going to call him by name, not because he's scared of him, but because he doesn't want to give him the credit for it. That is one of the most boss things I've ever heard in my life. Because he's dealing with some very, very. Chuck Schumer went on, I don't know if it was 60 Minutes or it was one of those shows, and he basically said Trump needs to basically like stop calling out the intelligence community because they have 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you. That was a threat. That was Chuck Schumer basically just saying that the intelligence community can get back at you however they want if you try to go head to head with them. And this is the sitting president. Right, so there are some pretty sus people in our own government.
A president that gets it. We are not in danger from those countries because they need us and they need our help. I mean, we forced Obama, if you think about it, Obama and Biden, and Bush to a certain extent, in all fairness, forced Russia and China together. And if you're a history if you take a look, Iran, and they have North Korea. That's, they call it the axis of evil. In the old days, you had the axis of evil. Here we have a modern day axis of evil. These are powerful countries, very heavy nuclear, which is the biggest threat.
Yeah.
The biggest threat is not global warming, where the ocean's going to rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 400 years. And you'll have more oceanfront property, right? The biggest threat is not that. The biggest threat is nuclear warming, because we have 5 countries now that have significant nuclear power, and we have to not allow anything to happen with stupid people like Biden. Biden did something with Russia There was no chance of him ever going in. And when I left, and then after I left, they started forming big armies on the border with Ukraine, right? And I looked at that and I thought he was doing that because Putin's a good negotiator. I thought he was doing that to negotiate. Saying such stupid things. For instance, he said that
All right, ladies and gents, markets are so slow today, and I have honestly a ton of work to get done. We did make it a pretty good chunk through this interview, and I did go through a ton of concepts. So we'll just break this thing down chunk by chunk, probably do a whole stream just kind of going through this, but that's going to end up being hours. So we'll piece this thing up. It's a very interesting conversation. I recommend you guys listen to the whole thing. And the reason I want you guys to start getting in the habit of listening to full conversations is because the media is always going to take this 5 seconds of what they said and spin it into their own story. Okay, so instead of kind of pausing, going through some context, some backstory, and understanding how the mechanics of that system work, and then kind of getting back into the convo, they're going to take a piece about Trump saying, we got, Kim Jong-un, I'm not worried about him, but we got people in our own government. They're going to take that 5-second clip and run it for the next week and saying that Donald Trump doesn't respect our government and da. And so when you listen to things fully on both sides, I listened to all the Kamala Harris interviews because I had to see for myself, is she a blundering idiot, or are they clipping this out of context the same way they did with Trump? When she's speaking off a teleprompter, Kamala Harris has great stage presence. I'll tell you, she has a shot here if she can stay on the prompter. The second she gets asked a real question, falls apart. And I've seen this over and over again. You have to watch the full interviews and the full speeches to get that context. So I'm not saying you have to watch every single one, but something as important as this convo, you don't want to let the media tell you what to think. You don't want to let the media tell you what happened. Just listen to use your ears and your eyes and trust yourself. I promise you, anyone that tells you not to trust your own eyes is trying to lead you into a slaughterhouse. Okay? Believe your eyes, people. All right, we'll catch you guys later. Happy and safe trading. We'll catch you tonight. Josh McGinnis starts his back testing sessions. We'll put up a poll here in the chat as soon as we're done in the Discord group to see what time is best for everyone for back testing. Anything else that we missed? Oh, make sure to grab your tickets to the FX Summit Conference if you're in Colombia. We have massive events in Bogota and Medellin coming up at the end of this month. Make sure to register as soon as you're off this stream. I also have a great podcast that just came out with Delmaris Yambo. It's if you guys are Spanish speakers, this is her first English podcast. Typically it's done in Spanish, but we had a great conversation there about trading. Highly recommend you guys check that out. All right, let's keep crushing it. Catch you guys on Sunday's Outlook stream. Happy and safe trading. Peace. Josh, I'll let you take lead on the poll and the chats. If you want to just throw it up, everybody